echoes of the road that changed everything. It began with a sound subtle, almost insignificant, a low mechanical hum, drifting through a quiet morning on a forgotten stretch of road. No crowds, no cameras, no anticipation. Just a single car rolling gently across cracked asphalt, unaware it was about to alter the trajectory of an entire industry. Today, that moment is seen as a spark that reshaped how the world understood mobility, engineering, and the relationship between people and machines. But to understand how one unceremonious test run turned into a global turning point, we must return to the day the world met a car that demanded nothing yet gave everything. The machine wasn't born from ambition. It wasn't designed to dominate markets or impress critics. It emerged from a decade marked by uncertainty, economic decline, tightening regulations, dwindling consumer trust. Manufacturers scramble for solutions, recycling old ideas under new paint. But this car didn't follow the script. It arrived as a quiet question. What if a vehicle could rebuild faith not through power or luxury, but through purpose? Its design was unassuming, its engineering philosophy understated. But beneath the simplicity was a clarity the industry had forgotten, an understanding that reliability was not a feature but a foundation. The engineers behind it didn't chase trends. They stripped everything unnecessary until only the essentials remained: balance, endurance, efficiency, trust. That first test morning revealed something unmistakable. The car moved with confidence that felt unforced, a rhythm that made even rough roads seem forgiving. Sensors recorded stunning consistency. No rattles, no strain, no hesitation. It simply worked. And in an era where everything felt fragile, that consistency felt revolutionary. Within weeks, whispers spread through engineering circles. Within months, analysts took notice. And within a year, the road where it first ran became a pilgrimage site for designers studying the beginning of a new automotive philosophy. But success didn't arrive without resistance. And as the world began to understand the machine's significance, forces far larger than its creators prepared to challenge everything it represented. Because no industry transforms without conflict. And this quiet car, the one that changed everything, was about to face the full weight of a world unprepared for what came next. Momentum gathered faster than anyone expected. What began as quiet curiosity soon became an undeniable disruption. Engineers from rival companies arrived unannounced at testing sites, taking notes, snapping mental photos, whispering among themselves. They watched the unassuming machine glide through brutal endurance trials with a steadiness their own high-budget prototypes struggled to achieve. It wasn't faster, it wasn't stronger, but it was consistent in a way that felt almost unnatural. That consistency frightened them. Behind closed doors, executives at competing brands held emergency strategy meetings. Charts showed a disturbing trend. Consumers were shifting their priorities. They no longer drooled over horsepower figures or flashy styling. They wanted stability, predictability, a machine they could trust not just for performance, but for life. The industry had built its empire on novelty, but this quiet car had resurrected something older, deeper, and harder to manufacture: confidence. Internal pressures mounted quickly. Marketing departments demanded explanations. Engineering teams faced impossible deadlines. Investors questioned whether long-standing design philosophies still made sense. Rivals began rushing out reliability-focused campaigns overnight, hoping to capture the growing movement before it left them behind. Meanwhile, the company that built the machine found itself overwhelmed. Demand surged before production even began. Dealers called daily, begging for allocation numbers. Governments reached out with interest in fleet contracts. Independent reviewers asked for early units to test. The world wanted the machine, but the company was nowhere near ready. Inside the engineering division, excitement collided with panic. The team that designed the car had worked in relative obscurity, insulated from corporate noise. Now their workshop was flooded with executives, consultants, advisors, and strategists, each with opinions, demands, and fears. Some pushed for rapid expansion. If we don't increase production now, competitors will catch up, they warned. Others insisted on redesigning parts to simplify mass manufacturing. It doesn't need to be perfect, They argued. It just needs to be profitable. But the engineers knew the truth. The car's strength came from decisions that required care, patience, precision. They feared that rushing production or diluting its design would corrupt the very qualities that made it exceptional. Tension deepened when early pre-production units revealed a challenge no one anticipated. The car performed flawlessly under controlled tests, but real-world data exposed issues the team had never encountered. In tropical climates, humidity affected a key electrical component. In mountainous regions, temperature fluctuations strained a cooling subassembly. None of the issues were catastrophic, but they were enough to undermine the car's reputation if ignored. The engineers requested more time. Leadership refused. "We can fix those problems after launch." Executives insisted. "The world is watching. We cannot wait." The conflict grew sharper. The team found itself pressured to release a machine that wasn't fully prepared for the global environments it was destined to face. And the more leadership pushed, the more the engineers feared they were repeating the same mistakes that once sank legendary machines in the past, launching too early, promising too much. As deadlines tightened, a divide formed inside the company. Some engineers proposed temporary compromises. Others refused a bend, arguing that a rushed launch would destroy everything they had built. Meetings turned heated. Emails grew confrontational. The car that had united consumers was now fracturing the company from within. And yet, outside the walls, the world waited with growing anticipation. Reviews, headlines, markets, expectations. The machine that changed everything was about to enter the spotlight. But the spotlight would not be gentle. And the first cracks, small, quiet, hidden beneath rising hype, were beginning to spread. The launch countdown moved forward despite the engineers' warnings. Marketing campaigns intensified, painting the machine as a revolution ready for the world. Commercials promised unmatched reliability. Billboards declared a new era of trust. Pre-orders skyrocketed. The narrative was no longer about caution or refinement. It was about inevitability. The world believed the car was flawless. But inside the company, the truth was far more fragile. The unresolved climate issues continued to haunt the engineering team. Humidity-induced corrosion, altitude-related cooling strain, electrical inconsistencies under extreme temperature swings. Individually, each problem seemed manageable, but together, they formed a pattern, a reminder that the global stage was unpredictable. The engineers pleaded for more testing, more validation, more time. Leadership responded with schedules, budgets, and projections that left no room for hesitation. Production lines were prepared. Factories accelerated hiring. Suppliers scrambled to meet soaring demand. Every department moved at full speed, except the one group that understood how close the machine remained to vulnerability. The final pre-launch trial became the breaking point. The company invited international press and major distributors to witness what they called a confidence run, a real-world demonstration intended to silence doubts and cement global anticipation. The engineers refined the prototype endlessly, making quiet adjustments in the hope of avoiding the failures they feared. On the morning of the event, the car rolled onto the course under a sky thick with humidity. Journalists assembled with cameras raised. Executives wore confident smiles. The lead engineer stood near the back, eyes fixed on the horizon, silently praying for stability. The run began smoothly. Acceleration was steady. Cornering confident, the machine moved with a familiar quiet assurance that had captivated the world. Reporters nodded. Investors whispered approval. Executives relaxed. Then the humidity climbed. Sensors detected rising moisture levels around the electrical harness, a weak point the team had flagged repeatedly. The system strained, misinterpreting data. Cooling efficiency dipped. A warning flashed on the driver's display, unnoticed in the glare of sunlight. Moments later, on a high-load segment of the course, the car faltered. A hesitation, a sputter, a sudden loss of power. The machine rolled to a silent stop. The crowd reacted with stunned confusion. Cameras zoomed in. Journalists jotted frantic notes. Executives forced nervous smiles, pretending the incident was minor. But the engineers knew exactly what had happened. One environmental factor, one they had tried desperately to address, had crippled the most important demonstration in the company's history. Online speculation erupted within minutes. Is the new car unreliable? Has the company overhyped another failure? Is the revolution already collapsing? Rival brands seize opportunity. Analysts downgraded forecasts. Rumors flooded social media, twisting the truth into damaging narratives. The myth of perfection shattered. Inside the company, chaos ignited. Executives blamed engineering. Engineers blamed leadership. Meetings devolved into shouting matches. Schedules were torn apart. Emergency redesigns were proposed, rejected, proposed again. Departments that once worked in harmony now fought for control of a narrative spiraling out of reach. But beneath the panic lay a deeper wound. The realization that the car's greatest enemy was not its own design, but the expectations built around it. Expectations so enormous, so relentless, that even one stumble threatened to undo everything. And yet, amid the turmoil, something unexpected began to emerge. The engineers who had been ignored for months found new resolve. They regrouped in quiet rooms, studying the failure, tracing every signal, every fluctuation, every anomaly, not to salvage a reputation, but to protect the integrity of the machine they believed in. They understood the truth the world could not see. A single failure did not define a breakthrough, but how the company responded to that failure would. As the storm intensified, the engineers prepared for the fight of their lives, a fight not just to save a car, but to save its purpose from being swallowed by fear, pride, and the weight of impossible expectations. The storm reached its peak when the board assembled for an emergency decision. The failed demonstration had shaken investor confidence, rattled the press, and ignited a global wave of skepticism. Markets demanded answers. Dealers demanded clarity. Competitors celebrated the stumble. And inside the company, factions formed, those who wanted to bury the project and those determined to save it. The lead engineer entered the boardroom carrying a folder filled not with excuses, but with truth. He explained the failure in precise detail. The humidity-triggered electrical instability, the long-ignored environmental warnings, the rushed timetable that had bypassed essential validation. He took responsibility for the machine's vulnerabilities, but he also held leadership accountable for pushing it into the world before it was ready. For a moment, the room was silent. Then he placed a second folder on the table, revealing a redesigned electrical architecture, a reinforced cooling strategy, and a climate-adaptive module that could stabilize the system under conditions far harsher than the failed test. The solutions were elegant, achievable, and grounded in everything the team had learned from months of real-world trials. If the company allowed the engineers to do their work properly, it was a crossroads. One path led to retreat, cancellation, and damage control. The other demanded humility, patience, and the courage to rebuild trust not through marketing, but through mastery. For the first time, executives listened. They approved a full engineering-led recovery plan, halted the launch, and issued a transparent public statement, not hiding the failure, but acknowledging it with honesty that stunned the industry. Consumers reacted not with anger, but with respect. The world had grown weary of polished illusions. Authenticity felt revolutionary. The engineering team returned to the workshop with a renewed sense of purpose. They tore the prototype down to its bones, addressing every weakness exposed under real-world conditions. Humidity resistance improved dramatically. Thermal tolerances expanded. Structural bracing refined. Field tests resumed quietly, this time guided by data rather than deadlines. Months later, the car returned to the same road where it had once fallen silent. Humidity high, temperatures climbing. All the variables that once conspired against it now stood like ghosts waiting for the past to repeat. The driver eased onto the throttle, watching the system monitors closely. No spikes, no dips, no warnings. The machine glided through the course with the same quiet confidence it showed on the day it first changed everything. But now with a resilience forged through failure, pressure, and relentless refinement, it was no longer a symbol of perfection. It was something far more powerful, a symbol of perseverance. When the updated version finally reached the world, it didn't arrive with fanfare. It arrived with proof. Reviewers praised its stability. Drivers praised its trustworthiness. Critics who had doubted it stepped back in quiet acknowledgement. The machine succeeded not because it avoided failure, but because it learned from it and invited the world to learn with it. Its legacy became a lesson the industry would carry forward. Innovation isn't about getting everything right the first time. It's about having the integrity to confront what goes wrong, the discipline to fix it, and the courage to tell the truth when the world is watching. The car that changed everything didn't earn its place in history by being flawless. It earned it by being honest. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again?